And welcome back to another episode of Top of the Muffin,
Do you?
where we explore everything Seinfeld. It's the world's soon to be number one Seinfeld podcast. I'm Winston Hall, joined as always by Jonathan Shabo. We call him Shab, and don't try to spell it. Today's topic, Jonathan, tell us about it.
Right. Well, in episode 1, we were talking about Kramer, his income, and how he gets by. And I think he may be the wealthiest, actually, out of all of the characters we see, based on what we see. Today we're moving on to, I think, a bigger mystery, which is how Jerry gets by in Manhattan, how he survives. Because what we learn about his career, well, that's what we're getting into today, is what we learn about his career. It doesn't scream over-the-top successful, being able to afford everything in Manhattan when you kind of boil it down. So that's our subject for today.
Right. Okay. So first, before you get into the meat of what you're going to say, we established last time that even in a rent-controlled apartment, New York is very expensive. Everything's
Absolutely.
expensive. So we covered that in the last episode. So today's discussion is predicated on all that expensive stuff we already discussed. That brings us up to Jerry being a comedian. So what you got?
Right. So, and exactly. Same situation as Kramer. Same apartment building, Upper West
Yes.
Side, possibly rent-controlled, because we do hear about the other apartment that opens up. So anyway, same situation. Well, yes. So first of all, anytime the other people around Jerry mention his comedy, they're always very unimpressed, very condescending in the way they talk about it. When Elaine is dating Russell Dalrymple, while Jerry's pilot is in production, he's trying to impress Elaine because he's in love. And so he's saying, oh, our lineup is very exciting. We have this new comedian, Jerry Seinfeld. And she goes, oh, yeah, I heard about him. He does a lot of that. Do you ever notice this? Do you ever notice that stuff? Later, George is pretending not to know Jerry and bump into him in a coffee shop when they are they're trying to set up Jerry's old classmate
Yes.
he beat in a race a long time ago.
Yes.
And they're pretending they're seeing each other for the first time. Oh, what do you do? He's like, actually, I'm a comedian. And George's like, So what do you do? A lot of, you ever notice sort of thing? And Jerry's like, yeah.
Well, there's another one is the girl that broke up with Jerry, and I don't remember her name off the top of my head because she saw his act. Do you remember in the car?
No, that's exactly right. The cashier.
Yeah. Yes, and she says, I can't believe it's somebody I don't respect. And he said, you're a cashier.
Things changed for me after Thursday night. Well, what was Thursday? I saw your
I saw
act.
your act.
Exactly. That's right. Very good.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and then, well, we'll get to that later, but we'll discuss the pilot, not the pilot where they meet with the executives with the bag of oranges, and
Yeah,
nobody
sure.
got the humor. Yeah. So, anyway, okay. So
The pilot, which by the way doesn't get picked up.
right,
Now, most
right.
pilots don't get picked up. But again, it doesn't succeed.
So there's a
He
clear
goes on
record.
Good Morning America with the puffy shirt and gets
Yes,
into a fight with
bomb.
Brian Gumble.
And
Yeah.
well, you mentioned off screen that he was working middle schools,
Well,
junior high
yes.
school. His yeah. And I remember the episode when the time Kramer was making bets at the airport. Jerry was on his way back from a gig in upstate somewhere.
Like Albany or something, yeah.
Yeah. Not exactly not like a headlining act. Upstate
Also
New
in
York.
that episode, which I do have on the list, I believe that's the one where his manager is messing up his whole trip.
Yes.
Saying, trying to take care of every little detail. And she says, I want you to know the pilot is going to be in the audience. That the pilot of the plane you took here is going to be in the audience. And what happens? It destroys his, like he can't even handle. The pilot who flew him there is in the audience. Another example of him bombing.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I should interject here because I play
Please.
music for a living.
Yes, you do.
And if you're really no name, essentially. Okay, you have to work constantly. You know, like I've played 7, 8 gigs in a week before. That's just to get by.
Sure.
So Jerry performs infrequently too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you would think he's basically the level of a road comic, you know.
Right. But
A
he
lot of
never,
traveling and a lot of gigs, like he would have to be.
yeah, he would constantly be doing work. And we
Yes.
don't see that. We see him working occasionally.
Yeah. Once in a
So,
while.
yeah. So there's definitely a disconnect. And we should add, by the
You
way,
have to be a workhorse to make that
yeah,
work.
Jerry doesn't have any side gigs. He doesn't have any side
No.
gigs that I can think of.
Right.
So
At
when we
least
talk
with
about,
Kramer, you can say, look at all these things. He's throwing everything he can at the wall.
yeah, yeah,
Jerry only has this one thing, and it doesn't seem like he does it very well.
yes, yes. And his parents are concerned about him.
Yes,
You
they
remember when
keep
they
trying to
called
get
him,
him to the Bloomingdale Executive Training Program. Another example. Kramer's right there.
and
You know?
they keep trying to send, yeah, yeah. Kramer's advocating for that, and they keep
Yeah,
trying
no,
to send
exactly.
him, they keep trying to send him money. To which, if you recall, Jerry like reacts to that. You're not sending me money. Like
Of
he hangs.
course,
I think he
yeah.
hangs up the
Because he's
phone on him.
embarrassed. His
Right,
parents
right.
are, yeah, sending him money. Yeah.
So that,
I hear good things about that Bloomingdale Executive Training Program.
uh, which is a whole other
Kramer's in the
episode
back.
about.
Listen, you had some good observations, but it's over.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a whole other episode about parents and how they support you. But anyway,
oh, sure.
I do want to. Would you have another bullet point there? Do you want,
I've
or
got
can I
plenty,
add
but
something?
just jump in. No, please.
Well, I just looked up the cost of a brand new Cadillac in 1995,
Yes, I
and
was gonna.
and
So this is the high point. Just to stop you for a second, this is the high point of
okay,
the series. I think that we see from Jerry, because the episode opens up with him, most money I've ever made, and everyone's kind of commenting on it. Kramer's like, I don't know if I can talk to you anymore. Elaine starts becoming more interested in Jerry than she ever has been before, and then he buys the Cadillac.
yes. Now, brand new Cadillac in 1995, according to the very first thing I see, was in the neighborhood of $36,000 to $40,000 in
Right?
1995. A Cadillac DeVille.
Yeah.
So there's that. Like where did
Yeah.
and then you remember the coat, the famous coat with the pink and white stripes inside. You
Sure.
remember
Yeah. When they
that
meet
was
Elaine's
earlier.
dad,
Yeah. So it seems like
he
Jerry's,
spends.
yeah, but to
Yeah.
write it
So we're
to buy
seeing him spend a lot.
yeah. So but he's single, very similar to Kramer. No dependents, no kids, no wife.
Mm-hmm.
But to buy a did he write a check for the Cadillac? I don't remember how he bought the Cadillac. He like gave his parents the car. I don't remember this.
He's on the
But
phone saying, I want this car fully loaded. I don't know if we get into the payment method, but on that subject, so eventually his parents sell the car to Jack Klompus, who immediately drives it into a swamp. And then Jerry buys it back, so spends even more money on it. And I forget how much, but Jack wants the Kelly Blue Book value,
yeah,
19,000 or whatever he says.
yeah.
And then Jerry's like, I'll give you 12,000 or something like that. But he spends that much more on top of the original cost of the car.
So Jerry just
So
had
we're
anywhere
seeing him
from
spend a lot of money.
a lot of money
This
in
is
the
why
mid
it's a
'90s.
mystery.
Yeah. So so we can only assume then that Jerry's career is out of sight. Most of his successes are out of sight, and they hone in on his failures. Because by all accounts, if he's really not that good of a comic, he wouldn't be. He ends up on the Tonight Show, right?
Yes. His Tonight Show appearance with Jay Leno goes okay. Because he's talking about his family and how crazy they are. And how his uncle blames everything on anti-Semitism. And Uncle Leo's girlfriend is watching, Lydia. She laughs at it, and so he accuses her of being an anti-Semite. And then breaks up. But that's the one that goes okay.
Right.
When
But
he's on the Charles, what's up?
well, I was like, to end up on the Tonight Show, though, somebody would have to think he was pretty good, right?
You would think, yeah.
But by all
So
accounts,
it's a mixed bag. We're seeing
yeah.
flashes on either side. When he is scheduled to go on the Charles Grodin show, which was not as big of a show at the time. That's the one where Sally Weaver ruins everything. She doesn't bring the barbecue sauce bottle that looks like Charles Grodin. She doesn't bring the doll that looked like George's mother, which was a backup plan.
Right.
And then the other guy from the Three Tenors takes his pants, because it's the one where he's taking off his pants all the time. Everyone is, to keep the crease. The other guy from the Three Tenors takes it and wipes his mouth with it. And then the guy comes in and says, "All right, Jerry, you're on." So that whole thing is a disaster, we can assume.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the puffy shirt. He's on national TV and fights Brian Go. Anyway, I think those are his TV appearances that we see.
And I just thought of, remember when he took a dive on purpose? He went, was it before Banya?
Oh, hold on real quick before we get to that. I forgot when they go out to L.A., he's going to be on the Tonight. They combined the trip to go find Kramer, and he's going to be on the Tonight Show out there, I think, as well.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway,
continue. I forgot what I was saying.
I said continue because I forgot
to. Taking a dive. He took a dive. He bombed.
Okay, let's start with the middle school appearance.
Okay.
So he goes there for career day. And
have you ever done stand-up comedy? Have you personally ever done it?
Oh, like not in any official. No, I'm scared to death of doing it. I think it terrifies me.
I had a friend here in Shreveport, my dear friend Molly, who was an actual comedian. And she crafted jokes and she put sets together. And she hosted an open mic comedy night. Okay. And to support her, I decided to go. Okay. And you get 5 minutes, nothing crazy. And one of my jokes was, have you ever noticed how all bald guys look alike? And then
you did 5 minutes.
Oh, I did 5 minutes. Yeah. And I got up there and I said, have you ever noticed how people think all bald guys look alike? Like the other day, this woman came up to me and said, "Hey man, has anybody ever told you you look like Shaquille O'Neal?"
It's funny.
That was my one joke. I thought that was pretty funny, bald jokes, And then I told a joke about how I never get up early, and the one time I did, I saw all the school buses and couldn't figure out what all the school buses were doing out. But anyway, it was rough. I mean, it was really rough. And as a musician, you can hide behind your instrument, make some noise or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
To be standing on a stage, and the expectation is that you're funny. Not, I don't know who this guy is.
Make me laugh. Come on, funny man. Make me laugh.
5 minutes might as well be 50 minutes.
Exactly.
And so to my point is that Jerry went on the middle school, his school, and I want to say it was like an hour or something, or 45 minutes.
Oh, hold on. Let's backtrack. So first of all, I have huge respect for you for even trying. I know exactly I've seen enough to know what it takes just to walk on.
Oh, it's a brutal.
5 minutes, and say there's only 2 people in the audience. Terrifying. And when you're trying to make people laugh and you just hear that silence.
Crickets.
It would anyway. I'm not a brave man.
I'm never doing that.
I'm not brave enough to do that.
I did it. Never doing it again.
You're braver than I am. So Jerry is going to his middle school for career day. George is jealous because he's like, I just work for a team that just won the World Series. To which Jerry says, and you were integral. But anyway, Jerry goes and gets bumped the first day. Because the guy with the lizard the kids are loving the lizard guy.
Yes.
Because he starts feeding it crickets, and the kids just love that. And we're out of time. And then he comes back and gets bumped again because of a fire drill. And then his manager, I think Katie might be her name. I don't remember. We've already mentioned her.
Yeah.
But she's like, they can't do that to you. That is so unprofessional. So I got you an assembly of 2 hours. And then
It's
he's like,
so bad.
what am I going to do? 2 hours. By the way, I'm a music teacher. So I'm around middle schoolers quite often. And they're not kind audiences.
Oh, they're brutal.
They're they're like lasers. They'll pick you apart so easy. So 2 hours in front of that audience, just to go off of what you were talking about earlier, how intimidating. Anyway,
Could you imagine? Oh, I wish
so
they would have filmed that.
George, this is also when George he stops having sex with his girlfriend because she has mono,
And he gets
making
smart.
him very intelligent. And
Yes.
he's like, "Oh, I'll take an hour off your hands." And he immediately then has sex and loses all of it and can't do the hour. So Jerry is at the end stuck with
And
a 2 hour assembly.
Yeah.
So Jerry now has a 2 hour assembly. And he goes out and
2
I
hour
believe he
assembly.
says in front of a bunch of middle schoolers and says, "Hi everyone, what's the deal with homework? You're not working on your home." And as soon as the word is out of his mouth, you just hear boo. So seconds seconds into a 2 hour assembly, he's bombing just immediately. And so that's how he does in middle school. And it also should be mentioned that at the end of that episode, he gets a call from David Letterman and says, "Yeah, I heard something about you getting bumped by a lizard." And Jerry's like, "Actually, it was a monitor." And he says, "All right, well, we'll let you know if anything opens up, Jimmy." It says Jerry. Right, Jerry.
You know, both of my
So
sisters
Letterman
are
stops
teachers.
taking his calls.
Yeah. Both of my sisters are teachers. And I've done one presentation with my sister, Sarah, for like second or third graders. And I can just sit here laughing because schools to me are like the most terrifying thing you could possibly do in showbiz. Like the worst. They're going to tear you to shreds. They're not entertained. They think you're ridiculous. They think you're boring. I can't even
They're bored
imagine.
and unhappy. And so they're not going to be in whenever I'm at a comedy night, I'm trying to laugh as much as I can to make them feel better because I'm uncomfortable, you know. Kids don't do that.
Know,
they don't care about you. They want you to die.
Do you know what my sister Emily and I call those? We call them big gulp moments. If you'll recall, getting off subject here, but Dumb and Dumber.
Sure.
When Jim Carrey comes out of the gas station and says, "Big gulps, huh?" And the guys don't answer, and he goes, "Well, see you later." That's what they're called, big gulp moments, where you put something out there waiting for a response and you get nothing. And you go,
"Have you ever seen
well,
this?" And they're just like, "No, I don't know." And all of a sudden, your entire premise is destroyed. You have nothing.
The
to
whole
talk about
premise. When I did my one stand-up set, I thought the Shaquille O'Neal joke was pretty funny.
now. Yeah.
Obviously, like, you're not going to confuse me with Shaquille O'Neal, but because they're both bald, you could.
It's funny.
I got nothing.
Even if it is funny, you may get nothing, you know.
Right. Or the worst thing is like the chuckle, like the soft chuckle,
The polite.
the polite chuckle.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, it's even worse. Yeah. I'd rather just bomb than you give me the polite. I get that. So what I do have experience is bombing in front of my students because I'm telling jokes all the time. And all I do is bomb. But the worst feeling was when I realized one of my students was laughing politely at my, not because she thinks it's funny. She doesn't think it's funny
She
at all.
felt bad for you.
She's like, "Look at this loser. I need to make him feel better." So I'm going to give him a polite laugh. Oh,
You know, I think I would rather get booed. Right?
Oh, I'd much rather. I would.
At least getting
a friend
booed
of
is a
mine would at
reaction.
least. You would just tear me to shreds, which is like appropriate. That feels better.
Okay. So back to Jerry.
Yeah.
Here's what I would, not to get too philosophical, but if I was a comic and that was my livelihood and I'm trying to make a go of it and I'm doing middle schools and getting bumped and getting booed, there's got to be some like, am I doing the right thing, like some introspection, some self-doubt, something.
Right.
And I don't know that we got that from him. I guess there was no. It wasn't very existential of him to
There's
like
no
question.
sense of back to the drawing board for me.
Yeah, and what question? What was he before that? Like,
Yeah.
what was he doing before comedy? We
Well,
don't
we
know.
get no sense of his career arc or rising and falling. It's just all very
Yeah,
static.
he went to high
Um,
school with George. The
mhm.
same middle school, and then all of a sudden he's a comic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Which a lot of comedians, that's how they do it. But anyway, what I was going to say, tagging on to the middle school thing, later you mentioned how he throws the set to mess Banya up, who's
yes.
following it, who's riding his coattails the whole time. He's like, all right, I'm taking a dive. It comes a little bit too naturally to him, it seems like. And it seems pretty close to his other comedy that he has in the show. Because he has suspenders. The suspenders are the only new thing. Um, but
Wait,
what's the
is
deal
this
with
what?
people getting sick? What's the deal with cancer? And the other one was, what's the deal with lampshades? If it's a lamp, why do you want shade?
Which is actually really funny.
I,
Uh,
I like that set better than his other sets.
was, was that where the Ovaltine joke came from? They gotta call it
Um,
round team.
that's the no, that's a different episode, but
Okay, I
that's
couldn't
the
remember.
mentor mentee episode.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
George
yeah,
is
yeah.
dating the mentee, and then Jerry takes on Banya. He's like, he's upset. He thinks anything that dissolves in milk is funny. Um,
So
but they should call it round
interesting
team.
round team. Interesting juxtaposition here, though. Okay, all of Jerry's bad sets that he's had, right? Well, and getting heckled and getting booed and all this, and yet he has no qualms about taking a dive, about intentionally ruining a set.
Out of spite.
Is it that
Yes.
right? So is it that he like his career is so bad that he doesn't care, or is it he's so confident in his career that he doesn't care?
So I feel the latter. This
Yeah,
is the weird part. He's comfortable spending money, at least at times. Um,
Cadillacs.
seems to live comfortably, and seems confident in what he does, in spite of everyone kind of, suggesting he stop. So
Yeah,
I think he feels confident, but there's no indication that he should be confident in what he's doing.
I just thought of something crazy while you were saying that. Remember famously when Kramer, we discussed this previously, where he got the line in the Woody Allen movie, the famous line,
Sure,
the
yeah.
pretzels are making me thirsty. When he tells the group that, immediately George was jealous. Remember? George was jealous. You got a line in a Woody Allen movie?
I don't remember, but yeah,
Well,
I take your word for it.
because George was parking cars.
Right.
And so he was
He
very
eventually
frustrated that
messes up the production.
yeah, and he gets frustrated because he messed up the production and these pretzels are making me thirsty. In the middle of all that, Jerry didn't show any signs of jealousy. Like, oh, you got
Yeah.
a line in a Woody Allen movie. Like if I got a line in a movie, you would be like, really? You got a line in a movie? It's like, but Jerry wasn't jealous at all, which
No.
kind of lends itself to the theory that he's very comfortable in his
Yeah.
career. Like, I don't
I
need a
don't.
line in a Woody Allen movie.
Yeah, that's very
So
true.
okay, so here's what we've established today: that much like Kramer, Jerry's money is up and down and all over the place. He bombs a lot and does bad, but does good just enough to float his lifestyle and occasionally buy a Cadillac.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
right, what
think
else?
that's
Are
about
there
right.
So what? You got any
I
more
think his,
summations?
but I was also going to say, I think it's a bigger mystery than Kramer when you
Oh
break it
yeah.
down like that.
Well,
It doesn't really make sense.
the more we talked about Kramer, the more his life made sense to me, which is totally the opposite of what it's counterintuitive.
Yeah,
Like Kramer's life doesn't
I
make any
agree.
sense, but when you look at it under a microscope, it makes a lot of sense. He's got
Yeah.
all these little things going on. Jerry has one thing going on that he's apparently mediocre at, and yet somehow he's making a living
Kramer's hustling all the time. He's
all the
always
time.
trying new things all the time. Yeah, exactly. Jerry is never hustling. He's just sitting around. The guy with the chest of drawers, the Fartman or whatever, he says,
Yeah.
you need a good area where you can write your skits. And Jerry's like, I don't write skits. Of course not. You don't have a good workspace or whatever. Another time when they're making fun of what he does for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, he was the one that. When was it when Jerry was standing out in the rain and his umbrella?
That's him.
He didn't have an umbrella.
Yeah.
Same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Same
there's
guy.
this kind of like inherent empathy for him. Everybody feels sorry for him.
He especially does. He's writing. He keeps on saying, "I'm sure things will pick up for you." He's writing royalty checks for the super terrific comedy hour, whatever it is.
Comedy hour,
happy hour.
Yeah.
And they're all for like 12 cents. He's like, "Oh, I can loan you the 12 cents." So once again, he apparently is okay. Well, anyway, let me just read off what else I had on this one. Kramer at one point suggests a bit to Jerry about how no one gets out of the way of ambulances anymore in this city. And something about is like, I know you're in a rush, but you should have thought about that before you took the... Something like that. Some cheesy joke. And Jerry's like, I'm not doing it. Kramer goes, that's as good as anything you do.
So it's
Later
like a certain disrespect.
Kramer couldn't care later Kramer's imitating Jerry when Jerry's out of the apartment. He dresses up as Jerry and holds up like a spatula and says, what's the deal with politics? I don't get it. Am I right, people? Yeah, so he doesn't think highly.
How many people insulted him by paraphrasing the "What's the deal"?
That comes up a lot.
A lot.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. By the way, perfect. George is considering getting the invitations for Jerry this time, not the invitations for Susan.
Right.
Jerry is dating the girl that is very demanding, and so he and George have to work together to be one competent man.
Yes, I
and
remember this.
George gets invitations on Jerry's behalf, and on the way back, someone stops him and asks if he wants to play frisbee golf. And George he thinks about it, and two thought bubbles appear above his head. And one is just a picture of a frisbee, and the other is Jerry saying, what's the deal with airplane peanuts? To which he immediately chooses frisbee and goes and, another one.
Yeah, like they don't respect him at all in that regard.
If you remember Jerry's friend Fulton, this one I had forgotten about. But one of his other friends from back whenever says, Fulton's in the hospital. He's not doing well. He could use a laugh. And Jerry goes and bombs in the hospital room. And there's a point he's like wiping his brow. He's like, so, he's, where are you from? Are you from out of town, sir? It's something like that. But he bombs in the hospital room just with an old friend. He's just staring at him blank-faced. And after that, his condition worsens. Let's see. Is there anything else?
That's what Jerry does. Is he just bombs? Like the vast majority of his performances are him bombing.
Yes.
In some form.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of
we don't see, and the only success, like the Cadillac, for example, he just says that was the best show I ever had. He has a tape. We never see it. We never hear it. That could happen. Again, we're only seeing a small percentage of their lives, but again, much bigger mystery here.
I would, if we're winding down here, I would end with this thought: is that most people who do art and entertainment and these things, they do struggle and struggle and struggle. Like that's really what you do. All you do is, I struggle. All you do is struggle. Yeah. You play gigs where there's nobody there, or you don't get any tips, or things don't work. I went to play a gig the other day and my keyboard wouldn't come on. So
I played a gig once where we showed up, we played one song and we're too loud, and they just told us to stop and put on an iPod. We got beat by an iPod that night.
iPods are cheaper. So there's an inherent struggle to the creative person, and I think maybe that's what Jerry's got going on is this kind of like perpetual struggle that is more entertaining ultimately than the successes. Like successes are good, Like, we don't know how he paid for a Cadillac, but that's not funny. You know, doing a good show
No,
and getting a lot of money is not funny.
not at
And
all.
the
His
struggle
parents
is more.
embarrassing him by sending him money is much funnier.
Right. Yeah, it's much
So
funnier.
I'm very thankful we get to see that part of it.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The struggle is what was most interesting slash funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad we got to see. All right. Anything else you got to add?
I think that's about it. Yeah. Stay tuned for episode 3, George's income. And then episode 4, Elaine's income.
Yes, and then maybe Newman. That's a whole other thing. Postal employee Newman, who has also more going on than just being a postal employee.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. Appreciate y'all for.
Don't want to get too much into Newman right now. Save it for
Nope.
later.
Nope, we're going to say that for later. So, to both of our listeners, or all three of you, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Top of the Muffin.
To you!
Come back for more antics. We'll see you then.